Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. Today I'm back in our little broadcast with Arek.
Hello everyone.
And we are going to talk about periodization in time trial training. So I'll start off with the first question. What does periodization actually mean?
So periodization in terms of cycling training is some kind of structuring your training over the season, so over the whole year, even for some years if you are training for Olympics, for example. But generally for most of cyclists is 1 year of training structured into cycles, into macrocycles, microcycles and mesocycles. So that it's divided generally into 4 parts, like let's say preparation phase, base phase, build phase, competition phase, and off season going back and recover. And generally it's made for 2 reasons. At first, not to overtrain yourself, so that it is containing both the training periods and the recovery periods. And the second most important goal is to peak when you want to peak. Because otherwise, when you don't structure your training, you can peak, let's say, on February or March, what many amateurs have, like they go for training camp, they are training there very strong, and then they are in their peak fitness like in March or in April. And then the peak event is on June or July, and they are out of fitness. So that the periodization is used to build the bigger probability of having the peak, because as we know, having the peak is not only periodizing the trainings, but it's the most important part, also in other things. But generally, it is giving us the most probability of building the peak and have the success on the peak event, which we want to achieve.
So basically, we do it because humans are not machines and you can't do the same hard training all year long. And also it's not very beneficial because it will wear you out. Because
yeah, of course.
Yeah, there's this, I get often asked by non-cyclists that what is my training if I ride every day 100 kilometers, but it's not really how training works, does it? So that's what...
Could you repeat, because we had some internet connection?
Yeah, so when non-cyclists ask me what is my training, they think that I ride like 100 kilometers every day and that's it, but that's not how training works, obviously. It's always something different.
Because many amateurs, especially if they don't know the methodology of periodization, or they just go by feeling, they go, okay, today is very good weather, so I go 100 kilometers because I have time. Tomorrow I have another day off, so I do 150 because there is a group ride. And when we repeat such a process for a few weeks or even a few months, we are overtrained and also demotivated for training. So periodization is also giving us motivation, because we see the adaptations from training and the fitness which is going simply better, and we are getting stronger, because adaptation is occurring when we are recovering, and periodization is also including this. So yeah, you are right.
Okay, so now if you look at the micro and macro cycles, what do these mean in practice?
Yeah, so mesocycles, as we said, are the biggest parts of the seasons. And now there is also some kind of issue or problem, let's say, when you are an ambitious amateur and you have very limited time. So we now tell about training for time-crunched cyclists. So every amateur or cyclist who can spend not more than 8 to 10 hours per week on cycling, or even less. So then the periodization which I use in such a case, it's most of the time reverse periodization. So in the winter time, so let's say from December, January, February and March, we are using reverse periodization. So we use the structured workouts, which are relatively short, mostly on the trainer, so 1 hour to 2 hours mostly, and also we are including a lot of gym, so that we are building not only FTP but also anaerobic system and some kind of fast twitch muscle fibers. And then when the sun is going out and there is spring, such as right now, we are building the endurance. So over the first few months when the light is very short during the day and you don't have time during the week to go for 3-4 hours both of days and both of because it's cold, and on trainer most of the people cannot do 3 to 4 hours few times a week. So this is why we adapt such a periodization. And for another reason, like for the elite athletes like you, who can spend a lot of time and who also have a big history of training, we can do traditional periodization. This is giving the biggest training adaptation, but it's also the hardest to achieve because we have to spend like between 12 to 20 hours per week, or even bigger amount of times. But then we are building very, very big aerobic endurance. As we can see, we are analyzing before our recording the Ronnie's file, so I can show one of the endurance one. So these are the effects when you have the very big aerobic endurance engine. So you are going the right. This one was on Swift, so it's also even bigger bigger effort due to mental stuff. But generally nearly 4 hours and 3.5 watts per kilo in zone 2 of heart rate. So we can see that it was really stable effort, and 3.5 watts per kilo, it's really high aerobic engine. So it also shows here that it is really in the line with the power zone and the heart rate zone. So this is something what we want to achieve when we are building the traditional periodization and the big aerobic engine. And then when we have something like this, we can concentrate on bigger efforts and specifics.
Yeah, so basically there is no one size fits all solution. Some people need to do it in a reverse periodization, and some people like me, for example, need to do it the so-called traditional way, because it depends really on what your goals are and how much time do you have.
Yeah, exactly. For most amateurs, I would concentrate on short intervals and short sessions combined with endurance in the spring, and then doing the strategic sessions and workouts depending on what races you are competing in. So if it's mountain bike or cross country or time trialing or road races on longer distance or even ultra marathon, it's all different specifics of training. So periodization should also be specific, so taking into consideration the individual factor and even demands of an athlete.
Yeah, and a particular discipline. Okay, and if you talk about, if you're getting closer to the event, there's a term of tapering that I would like to go through. So how do you do that, and when? And also, when are you starting these specific workouts to your discipline or event that you have just mentioned?
Okay, so we can flip to the training peaks once again, to your ones, and to do the periodization here. Here in training peaks, we can do the periodization in ATP, so annual training plan, and it will combine the TSSs and the lamp rate. So for me right now, the most efficient way to prescribe the periodization over the year is taking into consideration the TSSs over the weekend. Here we can put the TSSs, which we want to achieve, and then divide it into blocks, such as it here. So you can see that even in the time trial training, which normally the effort is quite short, so up to 1 hour, something like this, even then the CTL should be quite high and going progressively up over the season, up to the A-event race. This season is quite different than the others because we have the racing season postponed for August, let's say, maybe for July, but generally what we want to achieve with Ronnie is to peak for the end of August, so it's the national championship time trial elite.
Yeah, hopefully.
So for now it's 17 weeks from now, and you can see here how we are building the periodization. So here in December, it was the phase of preparation, where we were doing the aerobic and the gym, the strength, so like the traditional periodization. Then in base 1 and base 2, we were building some blocks of endurance, combining with FTP, sweet spot training, and also maintaining the gym. So it was the weeks of TSS around 800, 850, even above 1000, 1100. And here after the rest, so between March and April, we are doing some specific training on time trials connected with checking our milestones on the segments, because normally we will be doing the competition phase and doing the races, but for now when it's not possible, we are doing some maximum efforts on the segments and on the time trial bike, so that we keep the work specific. And what we want to do, like Ronnie asked about the tapering, so we will be building up the CTL and the intensity over here, so until the end of July, and from the end of July we will be doing the tapering. So the higher amount of work you had done before starting the tapering, the longer the tapering should be. So here it will be around 4 weeks. Even normally, due to most amateurs, when the CTL is below 100, it will be only 2 weeks will be enough to do the tapering. But when we have the CTL such a high, so around 140, we would need a little longer time to taper and to gain the biggest freshness and biggest advantage from the periodization. So during the tapering phase, we are lowering the CTL, but it should be lowered not more than around 15% of the maximum CTL. So here we have 142, so 20% would be 28, and we are going here 18. So we are in the border. So with this, we want to gain big freshness, as it shows here the TSB, it will be plus 21. And for time trial events, we want to achieve around plus 20 to plus 30, depends on the athlete, but generally plus 21 is very good indicator. And due to workout, which we want to do here, it will be very, very specific to the event. So we will do only the workouts, the maximum workouts, which will contain the profile of the time trial course, the exact specific event demand. So how many corners there will be, how many accelerations, how much of RTP we should sustain over the curves divided into intervals. So for example, when there will be around 1 hour time trial here, so in first week of tapering, we want to do like 4 times 15 minutes, then 3 times 20 minutes, then 2 times 30 minutes, and then the last would be connecting all of this. So 1 time 60 minutes in the peak. And what we want to achieve is to do such intervals on higher intensity that we will be doing here. And maintaining all the freshness which we will build here. So all the maximum workouts which we want to maintain here in the tapering phase should be done on very good freshness, so that it will be really the maximum pushes with the maximum motivation and also the maximum adaptation for the peak event. So this is what we want to achieve in the tapering phase, building the maximum freshness and the specificity to the event demands, and also the mental readiness to do the hardest effort. So that we want to build the hunger of the maximum effort over the peak event. Because what could be the mistake here in the tapering phase is that, I feel very strong and I am very good, so I will push harder. So I will build because it will give me a bigger form on the big event, and this is the biggest mistake which we can do right here, because here we will feel the adaptations from all the work we have done here, and the goal is to hold by yourself and conserve that energy to the peak event. So this is the takeaway in my understanding of this.
So basically, it also needs to be very specific to the actual rider, because you can't be too fresh and you can't be overtrained. You need to very precisely judge that moment when it's time to go for the key event, and you have to be very specific with the workouts themselves. Okay.
Yeah. So also just to add to this what you said, Ronnie, this is where Training Peaks is helping us, because it shows the TSB, the ATL, and we can indicate it from the training. So we can take the trainings when you felt the best, like the most fresh and the biggest power, and we can just copy this to the peak event. So when your peak power, let's say, were around TSB of +15 to +20, we want to simulate it on the peak event.
Yeah, so it enables you to predict this kind of efforts. Okay.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to ask about is, okay, now we have the periodization, now we have the tapering and workouts, but how do we actually know, in my case, for example, that I'm improving? What are the benchmarks or the metrics that you need to look at more closely?
Yeah, so the benchmark we want to include something like this. So at first the CTL which we are building is getting higher. It is already a little higher than it was last year, so around 180, and the last year was around 110 to 112. And what we want also to achieve is to build higher powers here. So we can see that for now we are not so far from the peak power for 20 minutes, which you had last year. It's only 10 watts lower, and we can also see that you can sustain it for longer time. In VO2 max, you are as developed as you were last year on the peak, and it was in August. And now we have April, so we should aim for something like here in 5 minutes. So around 20 watts higher here and around 20 watts higher here. So this is the peak benchmark which we want to achieve. And also what I really like is, apart from the peak powers, is the real courses. So like you did right here, this is the segment. So I always like to compare and to see what you can do on the real event. So this is of course only the segment which you do alone, but for time trial competitor, it's really
it's
nice.
It's basically the same. Yeah.
Yeah, such a workout. Of course, there are no rivals online and stuff, but the effort itself is the same. It's because you are only with yourself and your time trial bike, and you are doing this. And over this, we can track the pacing, we can track the powers which you sustain, we can track the heart rate, the cadence. So these are the benchmarks which we want to improve, and all of this should show itself on the average speed, specifically to time trial bike. For example, when we do the mountain biking, the benchmark would be the normalized power over the course which we are preparing for. So if we are preparing for 4 hours mountain bike marathon, let's say, the indicator would be progressing with the power over 3 to 4 hours. This will be our benchmark. When we are road racers who are competing, let's say, on hilly courses, when there are hills of 3 to 8 minutes, the indicator would be hiring the wattage over such a course, over that hills and over the whole course intensity. So generally, we should always compare ourselves to what we did previously, and also some kind of Strava segments also help us. If we are time trialists or mountain bikers or road racers, we can see our PRs over the specific distances or segments, and it also indicates if we are improving or not.
Yeah, basically, again, this is very specific for the rider and for the discipline. I'm a bit lucky because I'm focusing on time trials, which I can do perfectly the same alone without competing with someone. And yeah, for me, the key is average speed, because ultimately that's what we are trying to increase, and all the power and aerodynamics, everything else comes to aid that. Okay, Jarek, I think this was a very useful episode, and
I have only one thing to say also, if you have some time. This is the table for you if you want to see how many TSSs, hours per week, annual TSSs you should aim for when you are training in different categories. This is from US categories, but this is the same if you have the training peaks. And here on the dashboard, if you have technique peaks, see which category you are in.
Yes.
Generally, comparing to here, you can see that for example, you have your FTP in category 3, so you want your training per week to aim around this. Around of TSS is 500 to 700, around 9 to 14 hours, maybe less. Annual TSS, it will be useful to build an annual periodization plan. And CTL peak range, this is what many people are asking for. So here you have the guidelines, what CTL it's best to achieve in different categories, and not to overachieve. Also because you can hit overtraining state, and we don't want it to do that.
Yeah, you can only train as hard as you can recover.
Yeah.
Okay, so
generally this is the motto of all cycling and periodization and the endurance training.
Yeah.
Build up, rest, build more, rest, build more. This is the goal. So
basically, now that we have a longer base period, it means that I should be able to do or to achieve higher peaks with my training specifically.
Yeah, exactly. And also this is the case for most of you who are watching this, and if you are training cycling, but this period allows you to build a bigger endurance engine and to have higher fitness in the second part of the season. So I would not regret that there are no races for now.
It can be useful.
Of course, from the physiological part of seeing this.
Yes. Okay, Jarek, thank you a lot for your time and your expertise on this topic. We'll come back next week with another video, and until then, stay tuned and we'll bring you some more content regarding time training. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye.